As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
With the DJ Scratch, you know what it means. It's time for Burn and Return. How the hell is everybody doing? My name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor. Martin. Alongside me, we have Ryan DeMay and Ray Ito. Gentlemen, how the hell are y'all doing?
Well, I'm excited because there'll be no change to my daily life. I'll be able to continue my celibacy for the next 4 years.
Ray, are you joining the 4B movement too?
Oh, hell no. Hell no, Matt. No way.
Ray's about to move to the States.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
he's gonna go
I'm
full
on
Picasso.
the 4ABC movement, whatever the hell that means. That means I am for activity, I am for boning, and
always
I am
banging
for
cock?
cunnilingus. And not necessarily in that order, but I'm for boners, fornicating, and cunnilingus all day,
Yep.
every day,
All day,
forever.
Always be
The
ABCDs.
cunnilingus. Always be cunnilingus.
Yeah, always be kind of like. You better believe it. You better believe it. I mean,
It's a noun.
The golden
and a verb.
balls. The golden balls.
Yeah.
Always be cunnilingus-ing. It's good to hear. I'm glad y'all survived. I know, unfortunately, there was a man who took out himself and his family with the news of the election cycle, and there's a lot of chaos going on right now. So everyone stay safe, keep your head grounded, and realize that, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're all gonna be okay. Shout out to Jim Beveridge et al. And Dave Hine. If you made your way back around this way, I doubt you're going to be tuning in again. Boy, we had some poli-sci communications over on the Spacebook face crack forums, and it's heated. It's heated when you say I'm anti-tariff and they call you a MAGA Republican. I'm like, dude, what? I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're so jaded to the world right now. You need to snort a Xanax and just like bring it down a couple notches, dude. Like, think critically for just half a second before you lose your shit. Boy, oh boy. But I'm sure we'll be covering a lot of stuff in our B's and knees here that'll keep people's feathers ruffled in some way or another, because you know what? That's the purpose of the show, is that, you know, we're going to bring you some of the news. Some of the news you're probably not going to like, some of it you probably will, but at least we'll put a spin on it that'll hopefully make you giggle a couple times before we get through all of it. So yeah, here we are. Go to hell. Let's check out this week's headlines. Maybe the go to hell was a little strong. I didn't mean it. Or did I?
Want a bet?
Always be cunnilingus. This is just the news. We're on week 3 now of covering this spicy idea. Ray went postal on the postal workers. This postal worker went postal on a lawn care worker, and we are waiting to figure out how this sorts out. So for those of you that missed it, there was a postal worker who stabbed a lawn care worker in Florida
to death. Not just like
to death.
I don't think stabbings
Thank
are
you for the
quite as fatal
clarification.
as they used to be. I think, well, there's a lot more survivability in stabbings. I think you need to clarify every time that somebody gets stabbed that, yes, this person is now dead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're exactly right. Because when I think of people just saying there was a stabbing, I don't normally connect that in my head as a death. This guy was literally stabbed to death.
Which means if you're on the stabbing side, if you're on the OJ end of the knife, today's day and age, you really got to care to fucking kill somebody. You really got to get in there. I mean,
You really got to mean
bad.
it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Bad.
you really got to mean
really
it to carve somebody up like my lamb chop last night. Man.
You
Lordy,
either
that's-
you either get them in a critical vein, or you have to bludgeon through their breastplate in order to make contact with their heart.
And keep on going.
Uh,
and keep on
yeah.
cutting, Matt. I mean,
And
as
a
I
lot
said,
of times, it's not just the force that you're talking about. There could be the number of strikes it takes to get through it too, right? So
number of
there's
strikes.
a lot.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining a horrific scene.
This is
Yeah,
the song
yikes.
that never ends. It
Yikes.
goes
I mean,
on and wasn't that Lamb Chop that sang that song? I can't remember.
yeah, it was. It was, Matt. But it's just
Remember that
so
one?
it's just horrific to
Who's that
think that.
lady?
Okay, I can imagine poking somebody with a knife once, but then it takes commitment to keep on going until the guy is carved up like a roast. Seriously.
Yeah. So Mark Calloway here, he's been charged with second-degree murder. He was arrested. He was taken to jail. It happened over blocked mailboxes, according to the prosecutor. We got a little bit more information here. He was doing lawn work at a home. At the same time, Calloway was delivering mail on his regular route. A detective testified about what happened during the incident when Calloway appeared in court. She heard his pickup truck pull up, the detective said. Due to where her mailbox is placed in the neighbor's yard, she walked outside to ensure he was in the right location. The detective said the neighbor told him that when she walked outside, she heard a verbal argument between Calloway and Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker backs up to allow Mr. Calloway to pull in and deliver the mail. Once he delivers the mail, he says he forgot to deliver a package, at which point he gets out to deliver a package, and he says he can hear Mr. Whitaker yelling. The detective said Calloway went over the driver's side of Whitaker's truck as Whitaker rolled down the window. She was able to see the altercation from the shoulders up due to the pickup truck blocking part of her view. From there, she could just hear yelling. She wasn't able to describe what she was hearing. She could just hear loud back and forth talking, and she could see the two individuals moving back and forth. Calloway's attorney pointed out that the neighbor only had a limited view of the incident. What one person is saying to another could be very critical in a case like this, correct? A security camera on a car that was parked across the street captured part of the incident. He advised that they call each other lazy, and at one point, Mr. Whitaker exits the vehicle. He says the front driver's door struck him as Mr. Whitaker exits the vehicle. Then Mr. Whitaker chest bombs him. Then he says he slams him to the ground, at which point he gets up, and he said he felt the need to defend himself. The detective said that when Calloway stabbed Whitaker multiple times, that's when Calloway stabbed Whitaker multiple times. The detective said Calloway told him that he didn't recall Whitaker hitting him or having weapons. You don't have to be hit before you exercise your right for self-defense. Calloway told the detective that he thought Whitaker was going to beat him up. He argued that Calloway was standing his ground and acting in self-defense when a verbal argument became physical. He makes physical contact, unwanted physical contact against my client, goes right up to him, bumps his chest. His face is touching my client's face. Photos of scrapes and bruises on Calloway's arms and chest were shown in court. Escobar also pointed out that Whitaker allegedly weighs twice as much as Calloway and is significantly younger than him. He continued to poke holes in what he later called a bumbling investigation. He pointed out that the security camera video only captures part of the interaction, and a substantial amount happens out of the frame of the video. Escobar also said that physically assaulting a USPS employee is a federal offense. The justifiable use of deadly force has been proven, has a provision that allows someone to prevent a forcible felony from being committed on them. Escobar asked the detective whether they asked Calloway if he had any physical issues during the investigation, because that goes into the assessment that he was going through at the time of the attack. Several homeowners had mentioned Mr. Calloway was known to be agitated very easily when people were blocking mailboxes and have complications. Escobar pointed to a social media post previously made by Whitaker and read one of them in the courtroom. Next old person that follows me around the yard to make sure I fertilize the whole thing is getting body slammed. Oof. That's not good. Mr. Calloway provoked this initiation with Mr. Whitaker, and he ends up re-engaging with Mr. Whitaker even after he was pushed down on the ground. The contact that's eventually made between the parties, the physical contact, is at the behest of the victim in this case. That's certainly part of the self-defense law that allows someone to defend themselves from great bodily harm. They acknowledged Calloway has no prior criminal record. Escobar said charges have not officially been filed at this time. Yowza. So he is released from jail pending formal charges and a court date and all that fun shit. So
Wow.
Lord have mercy. And I mean, this is one of those things. This is tough. And, this is why we have courts. He threw him to the ground. He body slammed him to the ground, which is already a felony. He's a federal worker. Like, you gotta back the fuck up when you're dealing with the feds, man. You gotta back up.
Mhm.
He body slammed him to the ground. Got back up, got back in his face. He's got a history of wanting to body slam people. Dude is 60 years old. Look, I'm 38 years old. Under no circumstances whatsoever can I think of body slamming a 60-year-old individual that involves blocking a mailbox or over words. It totally comes into play if they try to attack my children, my wife, something of the sort. But when you're talking about blocking a mailbox and a mail guy yells at you, I'll be like, look, okay, get off my nuts. I'm moving my truck. Go about your business. I'm not going to fight that fight, especially with a postal worker, because again, these are federal employees, and you just
Yeah,
don't
it's
mess
a
with the federal
federal
government,
felony
man.
to
They'll drop
assault.
F-16s on your house.
Yeah, it's a federal offense to assault a postal worker. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. And my next question is, because I can see it from the other side, Matt, do you know what would happen if somebody twice my size were to do that to me?
I would say we'd be in a very similar situation to we're reading in this article right here, Ray.
You better believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get if a dude twice my size, I'm a pretty big fucking guy. I'm a big fucking guy, and if someone twice my size body slams me, I'm gonna be freaked the fuck out too. I'll be scared shitless. I'm not gonna lie. I would be 100% in fear of my life. I don't know. This is gonna be a wild court. I hope that they have this on court TV and I can listen to the entire thing. I doubt they will, but man, boy,
Yeah.
this is be fun to listen to at work. What are you thinking over there, DeMay? I see the wheels are turning.
One, I don't. My guess, and I'm not Jesse Busquet, attorney at law, but my guess is that he either skates or pleads out on anything criminal, but it's probably going to be in for a hell of a wrongful death suit, most likely.
Yeah. I would say you're exactly right.
And is any of this really fucking worth it? Like, I see people, and it's not immune to lawn care people. I mean, there's plenty of people in this business that get hot and get bothered and everything like that. But for God's sake, it is not that fucking big of a deal. Move the truck, let the old man deliver the mail. If he says something to you, if he calls your mom a cunt, whatever, just fucking back up and just go about your day. It is not worth it. Like, what are you trying to win?
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear that bullshit about, I've got self-respect. I'm not going to let somebody disrespect me.
Bullshit, right, Ryan?
Fuck
Bullshit,
you.
right?
Fuck your respect.
it-
Go walk into the fucking 7-Eleven down the street, take a piss, take your little dick out of your pants, go piss, get back in your truck and go back and do your job. That's what you fucking do.
Flashed on my legs.
Yeah, exactly.
I
already
don't
covered that.
get it. I don't fucking get it.
I don't get it either.
Anyway.
Me neither.
I don't get it either. Yeah, I'm not getting it either.
Majority of retail fertilizer prices have gone higher. However, we're not seeing that necessarily all across the board. Here we have, of course, MAP and DAP is strong. We did see some spike in urea. 6 of the 8 major fertilizers were higher in price compared to last month. Again, this is post harvest, so we're getting into pre-plant, and we were in a pretty significant drought through a large part of the country, and then all of a sudden we got a pretty significant rain event that went across the majority of the Midwest there, which means that anhydrous ammonia was back in play. Assuming there was going to be a drought, there was some urea that was already going down. So all of this is pretty normal for this time of year. Also, it's the time of year where Indian tenders come in. So our export business with India is still alive and well. And interestingly, we've got a little article about that coming up a little later. But I did notice that 1, 2, 3, I think it was like 3 tenders from India came in, and there's going to be major tonnages that are going out. And so, of course, with a spike in demand, of course, we're going to see some spikes in price action there. But again, this is going to parlay mostly to farm. But one of the things that we can expect is kind of like downstream effects of this is that we're still seeing DAP and MAP at effectively $800 a ton. Urea on the retail side is coming in at about $500 a ton. And so, for those of you that are keeping track of this at home, you could expect anywhere paying from, we'll say, if you're a big boy that's purchasing at volume, you're probably at $15 a bag. If you're at truckloads of urea bagged, multiple truckloads of urea bagged. But if you're like a truckload or less, you're probably up there $20, $22, $24 a bag range right now, depending on where you are in the country. So anyway, that's where that is. Potash is still lying low, and I did see, interestingly, some farms were taking advantage of these low potash prices and going ahead and broadcasting that just while it's cheap. They want to get it down while they can. Next up, we have why a warming climate increases food threats. This is from WCNC.com here. And it says warming temperatures are changing everything from what kind of a grass a homeowner may choose to making their lawn susceptible to disease. There are many factors that impact when you should start fall lawn care. One of those changing factors is climate change. Warming temperatures across the globe have led to some seasons getting longer and some getting shorter. And the Carolinas is most notable of fall and winter. With summer temperatures creeping later into the year, it is shortening the traditional fall. On the back end, spring starts sooner and so does summer. Craig Brokaw is the owner of Brokaw Lawn Company. He said longer summers cut into the time they should be aerating and seeding lawns. We could pretty much count on 2 full months of this, Brokaw said, of aerating and seeding lawns. Your editors suck. Editors suck. Now, a lot of times we're hoping we can get all this done in 6 weeks. With the first frost still coming around the same time in early to mid-November, lawn companies work much harder to get the work done in a condensed time frame. If there's late season hot stretch or significant rainfall like a tropical system after the aeration and seeding are done, you have issues. If it feels like summer in October, then we run the risk of new seed and new grass not being able to withstand those temperatures. It's still young and immature. You can't stand a summer blast, and sometimes you just got to go back and you got to start the process over again. It's now a 12-month issue we're dealing with, blah, 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 blah. Lack of water kills the grass first. This may cause homeowners to make changes too, like choosing a grass that works better in a warmer, more tropical climate, such as Bermuda grass. Brokaw said many new housing developments across Charlotte are switching to Bermuda grass due to the higher resilience when compared to the classic fescue grass. People like fescue because it's dark green, it stays really green, and really healthy in the fall and winter. However, cool season grasses require more maintenance, which ultimately means more money out of your pocket.
Ooh. A lot going on there.
Mm-hmm. There is. Look, I get where they're going with this article, and I understand why Brittany Van Voorhees chose this. But guys, I've been in lawn care since we'll say I've been in turfgrass since 06, right? So we're getting pretty close to 20 years that I've been doing this. If there's anything related to climate that I have seen that I can mark and be like, this is very anecdotal across the 18 years I've been doing this, is that we have seen a little bit of a shift to later in the season, right? And when I mean later in the season, this argument that is it getting warmer faster than it was before, according to all of my notes going through it, no, we're not seeing. In fact, over like the last 10 years, we have had frost in on or about our final frost date, which is, normally that's when you're out in the free and clear, and we have been right there. In fact, we had a couple times that we exceeded our final frost date where we were in May and we actually caught a morning frost. But still at the middle of the day, we got up to like 83 or 85 degrees or whatever. But starting that morning off, we were at like 33 and actually had a frost that occurred, caused damage on warm season grass. So I'm not denying that a lot that there's not some shifting and changing that goes on. In reality of measuring climate, 20 years is fucking nothing. That is not a data set that anybody is going to be able to point at with any degree of objectivity and say, this is for sure what is happening. We're seeing it, and it's affecting our business. Anyone who says that, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that I personally will say that you're a fucking liar, just flat out. And that includes Brokaw Lawn Services right here. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll leave the light on. You should have left the light on in the classroom. and figured out what you were doing before you decided to run this on the news and say climate change is affecting my business. Maybe he didn't intend to do this. They got asked questions, and then all of a sudden he found himself on the other side of this article. And yeah, I'm just being an asshole in this situation, which is not the first time. Let's be honest. But I think the other piece of this too that we want to talk about is like, oh well, more and more people are going to Bermuda grass, so therefore we can say, hey, the change in climate is what is precipitating the need to make this transition. Is it, or is the fact that we just
No.
know better now? That was said,
Yeah.
why have we been doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result instead of just going with what is no longer arguable? It definitively is the superior turf type for the growing conditions we face here. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I don't mean to beat up on Brokaw Lawn Care here. I think this is probably has more to do with the reporter who's choosing to put this into the local Charlotte paper. When I think of Charlotte, I don't think of some, like northern end of the transition zone where tall fescue is going to look great year round. I think of, this grass is going to look good 6 months out of the year, and then the other 6 months is going to look like hot shit, no matter which turf type you end up going with. So that's just, what I know from everyone who's lived there, over like the last, I don't know, 10 years or so that I've known people that have lived in the Charlotte area. Am I being out of line here? Am I being like uber dick or what?
No, Matt.
Go ahead, Matt, or go ahead, Ray.
I don't think so, because we know somebody from the Carolinas, and he always says we can grow all the grasses very well, and to a degree in our area, but then we cannot grow any of them perfectly. I mean, it just don't happen in the southern transition zone. It's just not happening, and I think that here's your sign: if you seed fescue and you lose a large proportion of that lawn every single year, isn't that the definition of insanity? I'm just asking. Isn't that insane? I mean, you seed the lawn and then you watch it die over the summer. Isn't that just insanity? Versus, okay, go put Bermuda, maintain Bermuda, and if you don't like it turning brown in the fall and the winter, just spray paint it green and be done with it.
There you go.
That's my hot take.
It should be that simple.
Yeah. That's my damn hot take for the day.
Speaking of hot takes, let's go to the Burns.
Oof. That sounds spicy. I'm not gonna lie there. Speaking of spicy, one place that definitely loves the spices on their food would be India, and India's U.S. $20 billion fertilizer subsidies, the $20 billion in U.S. Notes, could do more for farmers, and here's how. Making payments directly to farmers can encourage them to use fertilizer more wisely, thereby improving soil health, yields, and the environment. Okay. India stands at a turning point in its agricultural journey. Its fertilizer subsidy program, a cornerstone of its food security strategy, now threatens the sustainability it aims to ensure. The program needs reform. In the current system, the government pays subsidies to fertilizer manufacturers so they don't need to charge as much for their products. This means that farmers are often unaware of the true cost of urea and other chemical fertilizers, so they tend to overuse the products. This is resulting in severe soil degradation, water pollution, and increased greenhouse gas emissions. For example, in 2017, overuse of nitrogen-based fertilizers added 57% to the country's agricultural greenhouse gas emissions. I would love to see how they calculated that. The overuse is also straining the national purse. For the 2024 fiscal year, India has allocated 1/9 of its total agricultural budget to fertilizer subsidies, almost $20 billion. Yet around $715 million of that spend would be lost. A lot of India's subsidized urea is diverted to non-agricultural use, plywood manufacturing and textile processing, or smuggled to its neighboring countries. Here shows the total subsidy that's been going on here, the nitrogen fertilizer consumption rate that's been going on. Guys, I don't know. I mean, we have a nice little cup and handle that occurred there from like 2010 up till 2020. And then it looks like it's starting to recede here a little bit, but I don't know. We'll keep reading and find out. Compounding these issues, some 70% of Indian farmers apply fertilizer without first testing the soil properly or adhering to nutrient management recommendations. This is what does this have to do with nitrogen? This is degrading the health of soil, which could have long-term effects on soil fertility and agricultural productivity. Excessive fertilizer use in the Indo-Gangetic plains, for instance, has led to soil acidification and reduced crop yields. Furthermore, the current system discourages innovation in the fertilizer industry. Manufacturers have little incentive to improve the efficiency of their production processes or develop more environmentally friendly products. All these problems are widely acknowledged. In 2018, India took a step towards addressing leakages by recording sales of subsidized fertilizers to farmers through point-of-sale devices. Although this has reduced losses, it hasn't addressed the underlying issue of lack of farmer awareness around soil health, injudicious fertilizer use, and low environmental sustainability. After consultations with several government representatives and researchers in India, here I propose a way to overhaul the existing model for fertilizer subsidies, transferring subsidies directly to farmers' bank accounts and linking them to soil health programs would empower farmers to make more informed decisions, knowing the true cost. They should use less fertilizer. Okay, so here is the path to sustainability. Payments would be scaled on the basis of landholding size, crop type, local soil conditions, ensuring that farmers receive subsidies only for the amount of fertilizer they would need if they farm sustainably. For example, a farmer with 2-hectare plot growing rice in a region with nitrogen-efficient soil might receive a higher subsidy than would be a farmer with the same size plot growing lentils in an area with naturally nitrogen-rich soil. One study suggests that optimizing nitrogen use in the Indian agriculture could reduce nitrous oxide emissions by at least 30%. This reduction, combined with the potential for increased carbon sequestration in healthier soils, could make a substantial contribution to India's commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement. Fucking Christ, man. Direct transfers would also reduce leakages in the subsidy system by up to 40%. Then we've got the market-driven pricing of fertilizers, a dynamic pricing mechanism with a subsidy that is adjusted according to market prices, environmental conditions, and crop-specific needs, would ensure that a subsidy remains effective while promoting sustainable practices. For example, during periods of high market prices, the subsidy could be increased to maintain affordability for farmers. Conversely, in regions experiencing good rainfall and soil conditions, the rate might be lowered because less fertilizer would be needed. So if the price of urea rises from 5,000 to 6,000 rupees per ton, the government can increase the subsidy from 90 to 95% of the price to keep the farmer's cost relatively stable. Similar in a drought-prone area during a good monsoon year, the subsidy might be reduced from 50% to 40%, encouraging farmers to rely more on natural soil fertility. Integration of subsidies with soil health data. Subsidy payments could be linked to a scheme known as the Soil Health Card run by the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. The scheme provides farmers with detailed information about their soil nutrient status and recommended appropriate doses of fertilizer. It currently covers all 150 million farm holdings in India. A digital platform for managing subsidies and advising farmers, incentives for adopting sustainable farming practices. And then there's still some challenges that need to be addressed here, and it goes on. And then we talk about the path forward. This coherent, multi-pronged approach involving key stakeholders at various levels is essential for the successful transformation of India's fertilizer subsidy program. Okay. Guys, I'm not gonna lie. Who authored this? This is by Asim Biswas. He is a professor of agriculture and School of Environmental Sciences at University of Guelph in Ontario.
Oh boy.
This
Oh boy.
sounds good in practice, right? Like, oh man, we got all these really logical, straightforward solutions here. But we need some careful definitions. I get really nervous when I hear words like soil health. What the fuck is the definition of soil health? When they talk about sustainability, can we fucking define sustainability? And then when we use the word scheme, can we define what the fuck a scheme is in this scenario as it relates to soil health and correlates to sustainability? There's a lot of fucking hoodoo that's being discussed here without a lot of concrete guidelines of reality to operate in. This is what I'm getting at.
Okay, Matt. I'm actually, as you read through this, I got more and more fucking freaked out about this. And you know why I got freaked out? This sounds a lot like what the former Soviet Union, China, and North Korea does with their fertilizer management. And guess what happens in those places? People die. And you know why they die? Because they're not able to grow enough food. Because this is an example of collectivization of agriculture. Okay, this is an example of it. Central control of agriculture. Collectivism. Not science, political science. Not agronomy, socialism. And we all know how well socialized agriculture worked.
I think
Refer
it was
to
spelled LMAO, L Mal.
yeah, or let's see, an even more extreme example of that would be 1970s Cambodia under Pol Pot.
Which was another LMAO moment. DeMay, is there a silver lining in here? Is there anything that we can look to and be like, hey, we ought to adopt that in America?
Just that.
Is this part of the Maha movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement? We're gonna do fertilizer subsidies.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the farm bill here soon, but the subsidy thing of it goes back to picking winners, and it goes back to, are you really prepared for not being able to use these products, right, in lieu of something else that makes things more sustainable from a human health perspective, but does it really help, and is it fiscally sustainable? So I think there's going to be a lot of reckoning with some of these causes here very soon about just how not only palatable they are, right, for people to understand. Well, hey, wait, this whole healthy thing, it's going to cost me more to buy groceries. Like, why does that? And also to the point
Ryan,
of budgets
it's going to go
public.
more. It's going to go towards just cost, because you see,
Oh yeah,
the MAHA movement also talks about literally taking total control over people's choices. And I've said this elsewhere. I'm going to fire up the killdozer if I come to find out that a grocery store turns into keto only. Shit's going to get bulldozed when that happens. I can promise you that. Because Matt, am I keto?
No, I don't think grain is going to go anywhere. It's grain is
No, it's not
already
only
too
grain,
subsidized
Matt.
as it is.
No, it's not only grain. It's all about basically making people, everybody, whether they fucking need it or not, go on the equivalent of a cutting diet.
Again, I don't think grain is going to go anywhere because it would just instantaneously cripple the entire economy. I mean, we
It's
live
not
and
only
die
grain, Matt. It's not only grain. They're talking about going after anything.
I mean, grain or
has
carbohydrates. So I mean,
carbs.
It's
Carbs. Period, Matt. Yeah, carbs. Period. And by the way,
I don't think they can undo all the corn and wheat acres that are planted in America, because it would literally just cripple our
but you see, shit will hit the fan. Shit will hit the fan when they go after potatoes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I see nothing on the menu right now as far as attacking potatoes. In fact, I've seen even some subsidies potentials being pitched out there for potatoes specifically, because of some of the areas that were once doing great in potato production that are beginning to struggle with it. And so I don't think there's going to be a forced keto movement in it, but this idea of ultra processed, whatever that means, and whoever defines that, I definitely want to keep an eye on, because There's a lot of, are you talking about is bleached flour now considered ultra processed? Is it because you include potassium sorbate in it? Is it because you put citric acid as an ingredient in one of your products? Or if you're
or
using
because you just ground it,
monocalcium phosphate, is that
or
considered
does it
a ultra
processed food,
processed? So there's a lot of again, we need definitions in order to understand clarity before really a lot of this can even be parsed out. Otherwise, it's a whole bunch of words. And specific to India, and one of the things that I have followed very closely out of India is number one is it started with the Trump administration before, and the tariffs that were placed on it, which kicked off the trade war. And I firmly believe that it is my firm belief in this is that Modi that was a reward for Modi, who is head of India. Um, and so what happened is like Kim China et al. Right had to shift a significant amount of production of AIs over to India to avoid the tariffs of where it was going to be coming out of China. And China does have manufacturing facilities in India, right? So by tariffing China, that production gets shifted to India. That's like a handout to Modi. Then the Biden administration comes in and they didn't just undo those tariffs. They, in fact, expanded the tariffs that also included packaging and chemical manufacturing intermediates. So it took it even one step further of that 25% to a lot of other industries where it wasn't necessarily being touched, which again, that only affects what's being produced intermediate wise and packaging wise coming out of China. So if it's coming out of India, which India is very capable of producing all those things and does because they don't have the same regulations that we do here in the US, and that's why it is done so at such a scale that it is there. I can't help but think that is keeping India in the good side of the geopolitical turmoil that's going on right here. Now, what's interesting specific to India in lieu and in response with all this farm subsidy that's been going on, there is what is called the Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperation, and there was a huge movement to get people to shift over to what they had under their own brand, which was they were going to beat the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium market with their branded new discovery of nano liquid fertilizer. So they were going to be climate
Yep.
change. They were going to be fucking everything with us. And they are still pushing it left and right. And IFFCO, they have all the nano products that you could possibly think. And if you type it in anywhere in social media, you're going to see this shit just nuts. And then everyone who comments in the most coordinated and orchestrated way ever, you're going to see just monumental amounts of a coordinated response to it, right? And about how amazing it is, and how life changing it is, and how they're going to put the rest of the world out of business because they have solved the agricultural crisis that occurs, whatever that means. You can again apply your own definition. So, and who is funding the IFFCO, because this is circumventing a lot of the subsidies that are taking place, and so it makes you wonder. I think there's bigger geopolitical things at play here, and especially in response to that subsidy, because what are they doing with that money? Yeah, they're supposed to be purchasing it from the United States. No, they're supposed to be purchasing from what they produce there, but we're seeing huge tenders of nitrogen being purchased from the United States and shipped over there. And I guarantee it has a lot to do with that subsidy being out there because local production can't be met. And again, as we lost China as a major export partner of ours, all of a sudden now you've got this $20 billion subsidy package and production handout to India. It's just like, man, this seems awfully a whole lot like, hey, India, I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back, and we'll both, come to an agreement that we're going to keep China in and out and away from here. And then, of course, along the China-India borders there, they have been fighting with each other in not the scale that's going to break out in war, but they're regularly beating the shit out of each other with sticks and then occasionally stabbing and or shooting each other. And that's like happening every day. And if you look into those corners of the internet, you can actually find videos lower quality than what you see coming out of Ukraine, but you can watch where these guys are literally fighting each other every day. They're not wearing GoPros on their head. They're probably wearing like, whatever the off-brand DJI, whatever head cam is, and potato cameras, and you literally can watch the Chinese and India fight with each other all day, every fucking day. It's crazy. You don't see this anywhere in our news. Nowhere. But it's legit happening every day. Just like you see China fighting with the Filipinos in the contested waterways right now. There's a lot of this that's going on, and there's a lot of just backdoor deals that are taking place, and it's all kind of chaotic of trying to sort out why each of this is happening. But I'm pretty confident. I am pretty confident that a lot of this that we see and why it won't be changed, and these subsidies are taking place, is totally a tit for tat. You get my back, I got yours, and we'll both collectively come to an agreement here that we're gonna prop each other up while we keep China closer aligned with the axis being Russia, North Korea at all. So I don't know. That's just kind of my personal take on it there, of having watched this unfolded over the last few years here. And then Falmouth considers a revised draft of pesticide use. Falmouth convened a community workshop on October 30th to discuss the latest draft of proposed fertilizer and pesticide ordinance, which aims to more strictly regulate those substances. Boy, man, here we go. So this is from pressherald.com here, the forecaster. Where is this out of, DeMay?
Maine.
Out of Maine. Our
Maine.
favorite.
Yep.
We have
Favorite state.
is Jihad Jacob in the chat right now? We'll see what no, I don't think I see Jihad Jacob in there. The town of Falmouth has unveiled a new draft of its proposed pesticide and fertilizer ordinance, which aims to more strictly regulate the substances and incorporates the feedback the town has heard regarding nitrogen container fertilizer and grub control. The attendees offered a wide range of feedback, though a number said they were concerned about the fact that golf courses are exempt from the rules outlined in the draft proposal. The current restrictions on pesticides and fertilizers were adopted in March 2020 and only required licensed commercial pesticide and fertilizer applicators annually registered with the town, and required they provide summary reports of applications made in Falmouth during the prior year. It also prohibits the application of fertilizers between December 1 and March 31st, so they have a blackout there. According to the town, Falmouth's work to update the ordinance began back in 2022 when the Conservation Commission's proposed amending the ordinance to further regulate pesticides and fertilizers. According to the town, a number of Maine municipalities have moved to ban or restrict the use of pesticides and fertilizers. Earlier this year, Town Council unveiled a proposed update for the ordinance that would prohibit the outdoor application of neonicotinoid pesticides, the outdoor application of sludge and biosolids, and prohibited synthetic fertilizer containing phosphorus on lawns and natural turf, but did not address nitrogen-containing fertilizer. In practice, this draft made it so the town was prohibiting the use and sale of common non-organic grub and weed, grub, and crabgrass control products. The town put out a survey that nearly drew 600 responses, revealed that 57.5% of residents were opposed to the draft ordinance. Partly in response to the survey results, the town council chose to put off working on the draft ordinance until it had the chance to do more public education. Since then, the town has hosted an expert panel where it invited speakers with a knowledge of pesticides and fertilizers to share insights. In the latest version of the proposal, workshop by the Ordinance Committee and Conservation Commission over the past few months, fertilizer containing nitrogen would be allowed on lawns, but be limited to 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet with a maximum of 2 applications per year. Jeez, I know. It also would allow the application of phosphorus containing fertilizer with a limit of 1 pound of phosphorus per 1,000 square feet with a max application of twice per year. Nitrogen and phosphorus were useful because they help plants grow, but they can pollute waterways and also cause eutrophication, the phenomenon where there's an increased availability of limiting growth factor needed for photosynthesis in a body of water. Eutrophication can cause excessive and even toxic algal blooms. Phosphorus is the limiting nutrient in fresh water, meaning the excess phosphorus can cause algae blooms, and nitrogen is the limiting nutrient in salt water. During the expert panel, Heather Kenyon, the Science and Advocacy Associate with Friends of Casco Bay, a group that advocates for environmental protection of Casco Bay, brought up the harms and recommended adding a nitrogen fertilizer restriction because much of Falmouth's runoff drains into Casco Bay, which is salt water. When it comes to limiting and prohibiting the use of pesticides, the town's new draft continues to use a national list, the USDA list that identifies substances that may or may not be used in organic crop and livestock production as a reference point. A non-synthetic substance that is specifically listed as prohibited on the national list is prohibited from use in Falmouth. Synthetic substances are prohibited for use in Falmouth unless specifically allowed on the allowed of the national list. Amanda Methot-Vig's policy analyst said that using the national list was among the issues raised by the public, but at recent community forums, she justified its continued inclusion like this. The national list is the most robust list and has become a standard for ordinances like this across the country as well as around the state. It's one of the few lists that is required by federal law to be reviewed on a schedule and updated, where others are just not as updated as regularly. It goes on to talk about here when it comes to grubs, the new draft includes a carve out. Preventative application of grubs will be an exempt activity, but the pesticide must be applied by a professional applicator. Some members of the public registered concern that the earlier draft of the ordinance went too far restricting grub control. However, they made an additional recommendation here: the buffer of 20 feet from storm drains for the application of pesticides, remove the prohibition of neonicotinoid pesticide sludge and biosolids because they are already barred by the state. Anyway, points that came up included having a national exemption for crabgrass management, making the provision about the national list more user-friendly and understandable, and making the storm drain buffer distance further than 20 feet. Another common refrain was that it seemed unfair that golf courses were exempt from the ordinance, given that they are large tracts of land and a non-trivial amount of water moves through them. They will take all this feedback into account when they meet in mid-November to discuss the draft. People tell me that a pesticide ban will never happen. And, all of this just shows a wonderfully executed game plan of building a public education outreach to educate the public on the banning of pesticides and fertilizers. And it sounds like they're making good progress with it. And its days in the entire state of Maine are fucking numbered, if I read that correctly. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic there.
Nope, not at all, Matt. And I'm going to ask, so what is the future of lawns and landscapes in the state of Maine? What's the future? I mean,
You're going to hear
silk flowers and astroturf? Silk flowers and astroturf at this point? I mean, silk trees? I mean, that is kind of where I think this is going to end up. Oh, wait a minute. Can't do that because artificial turf has PFAS. Whoops.
And microplastics.
And microplastics. I mean, but then the alternative is you do this and here's what happens. The state of Maine will become known as an ugly shithole. Congratulations.
Sorry, Jacob. You're gonna have to get a good deal at Home Depot for some indoor-outdoor carpet.
Yep. Or poor Jihad Jacob is going to be saying, Ray, I need you to smuggle me something.
It's gonna be right out of it's out of the Eastern Tennessee collection. We call this one double wide, and of course, over here you have the nicer, slightly higher pile height, triple wide.
Sounds like Lower Alabama.
It's actually more like Southeast Ohio, but it all plays the same.
I was gonna say, I am sure they are lockstep hand in hand and be like, you talk funny, and the other one's like, no, you talk funny, and they're like, hey, I like your house, and they're like, hey, I like your house. We'll shake hands, brother.
Ever since you took the wheels off of it. Speaking of taking the wheels
cans
off,
of steps too. I like it. It's funny because you've seen it.
There's people on the East and West Coast that are listening to this. We're like, I have no idea what these guys are talking about right now, but we just connected on a deep spiritual level. All right,
we're talking about the rest of America that y'all are so oblivious to existing. It's incredible. And you say everyone else lives in a bubble. No, motherfucker. This is like 98% of America that you have no idea exists in between the two central coastal cities. We are real and we are here, gosh damn it, and we are good people at heart. We mean well.
We do. We mean well. Some of us just take care of our shit better than others. That's all. All right. Let's go to Jono's turf.
Man.
What a refreshing sound this is.
Joe
Knows turf.
Hey, Joe, now post-election, you ready?
I'm gonna
We'll do it for
give
members
you
only. You ready to come on and do
your turf facts today because
do a debate?
knows
I'm ready when you are.
I think Joe's probably getting back from Dearborn campaigning in all the Arab neighborhoods.
I
Fuck.
thought he was in Howell,
Anyway.
Michigan, up there near Driver. Whoops.
All right. So as an
Inside.
extension of the Falmouth issue, that meeting that they referenced, guys, with experts, I got curious and I thought, man, I wonder what that was like. And typically places like this, they will videotape those meetings. So I have found and gone through the videotape in which
Oh
they
my
bring some.
God.
Listen, the level of dedication that I sometimes get, like Matt taking time out of his Saturday to go and do a flame war with Jim Beveridge on his goddamn Facebook group. These are the things that we do for people here, okay? Through sacrifice, and I don't know. I don't know where else to go with it from there. Anyway, so let me set this up for you real quick. So Falmouth is just north of the city of Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine, and specifically South Portland, Maine, have two of the more, I would call them, stringent pesticide regulation ordinances on their books at a city or a town level. Okay, so Falmouth is trying to follow suit. They've had one in place, but it's largely more of like a framework than anything. So they brought this group together. It was moderated discussion between the stormwater manager for the city of South Portland, gentleman there, the watershed manager, the Heather lady that they talked about, Crasco Bay. I can't remember exactly what bay is right there. And then the other two folks that they had there, one was a lawn care operator, a branch manager for a lawn care operator up there in, we'll call it New England, but they've got branches in Maine. And then our friend, who I don't think has ever been featured prominently on this particular program, but we've talked about him a lot off the air, is a gentleman by the name of Chip Osborne. Now, Chip is the president of a company called Osborne Organics. It's based in Massachusetts, and what Osborne Organics largely does is consult and educate on the space of what they call organic land care, right? And specifically for parks, recreation, sports fields, home lawns, things like that. And Chip is known as an expert, but I'm going to ask, gentlemen, for you to hold. You can watch and you can comment as we go, but I want you to hold your verdict until the end. This is going to be kind of like a live deliberation of whether we think that Chip is an expert, that he knows what he's talking about as we listen to some of these clips. So, JPink, I want you to pull that video up, and I'd like you to first start at the 23-minute mark, and we're going to listen to Chip talk a little bit about some of this stuff as we go through.
On lawns if not treated. In your experience, are there effective organic treatment options for grubs?
Yeah, that maybe be. As I mentioned, we're not simply swapping out, right? I'm not looking to get rid of a synthetic grub control product and replace it with an organic product as a one-up and not do anything else. So that really is sort of the heart of it. We simply aren't swapping things. Now, we all know integrated pest management. In my work, we've developed organic integrated pest management. So integrated pest management, as it was developed, was done in academia in the 1980s to determine, a concerted effort to reduce pesticide use. Well, in the last 4 or 5 years, studies have been done that showed that here we are in the 2020s, and it hasn't worked. Right? It hasn't worked. Pesticide use has not been reduced. So it was a good idea, but instead of an academic and that kind of an approach, it's become an industry approach. So, but in IPM, it's nothing more than a decision-making protocol. In IPM, one of those protocol strategies is threshold levels. And one of them is you should try all reasonable non-chemical alternatives before reaching for a chemical. So a product like Acelepryn, which is a grub control product, it's put down in the beginning of the season. We don't even know if there's a problem, right? We're putting it down just in case. So that flies in the face of integrated pest management because
Pause.
you're
What?
front-loading a system.
What?
So Chip goes on to say that he's front loading a system by using Acelepryn. He talks a little bit about IPM as a decision making hierarchy in which you first try mechanical means, biological means, you and sort of, if you imagine it as a pyramid, chemical control is at the top of that pyramid. I think I won't get into IPM too much. I agree that it's a flawed decision making tool because a lot of people don't know how to put it into practice. Now, to sit there and say though that using that as more of an integrated approach into managing overall turf health is largely false. And the studies that Chip refers back to, I'd sure like to see those where pesticide usage has continued to increase, especially on turf, right? Managed turf. And I don't know how we're measuring that, right? If we're talking about acres treated, which certainly with development, gentrification, you're going to see the amount of managed acres of turf go up.
Ryan,
Yes.
I need to kind of pause this too, in that I find that statement that pesticide use on turf going up is rather fallacious, because
Fallacious.
the kinds of
Longest?
no, it's false. It's false, Ryan. It's patently false because the amount of active ingredient being applied to turf has decreased tremendously, right, Ryan? Because Chip is banging on using Acelepryn in the beginning of the season. Well, Ryan, I come from the time from when there was no such thing as neither Acelepryn nor Merit. Guess what I had to do when there was a grub or soil insect issue in turf? Guess
What's
what? You guys, guess what I had to do? What does 4 ounce per 1,000 square foot of either Dizonon 4E or 6 ounce per 1,000 square foot of Carbaryl 4L per 1,000 square foot drenched in mean to you? What does that mean?
And that's the
multiply
point
that multiply that by acre. Multiply that, man, Ryan.
So that's the whole thing, is that if we're going to look at managed acres, if we're going to look at pounds on the ground are absolutely declining because we're using much higher
more targeted chemistries,
right, that have a higher AI load on a smaller rate. So okay, so a couple other things here real quick. With respect to the argument that he's making here, is that the options, if we have to treat curatively, none of them are good. None of them have the risk profile that even approach what Acelepryn is, right? Acelepryn doesn't even have a signal word. Remember caution, warning, danger, right? Acelepryn has an LD50 that is so low that it doesn't even require a signal word from the EPA. So I ask, are we really doing ourselves any justice? And guess what, guys? We also know, too, that the half-life of Acelepryn is so long, right? Somewhere between 700 and 900 days, that if we even sat back and said, you know what? Hey, we're only going to do it every other year, we'd probably be okay.
Skip everything. Yeah.
Probably be okay. All right, JPink, jump over to 46 minutes and 30 seconds. We're going to have Chip tell us about phosphorus, how phosphorus works in turf systems.
Is Andrew Baxter on the side of Chip Gaines or not?
Chip Gaines?
Yeah.
No, he is not. He is not. He is for responsible regulation. He is a lawn care operator.
I'm going to reach out to Andrew. I just found him. I'm going to reach out to him, see if he'll come on the show.
Okay. Go ahead and play here.
Add that if you consider nitrogen in the future.
For the two folks who deal with turf, one part of that question is, are there certain applications in which fertilizer containing phosphorus is necessary, like starter lawns or repairing a lawn that has been damaged?
So turfgrass, generally speaking, doesn't use much phosphorus. So an established lawn should always be fertilized with a 0 phosphorus fertilizer. Part of my work is soil testing, and I tested soils all over the country, and about 85% of all the samples I test, there's enough phosphorus already in the soil. So then the job becomes, how do I get that available to the plant? And it's an organic acid that chelates it or makes it soluble. When you buy a fertilizer, organic,
Pause.
phosphorus is in.
What he's talking about, and he gets to this later on in the talk here, is he's talking about using humic acid as a means to activate or make phosphorus plant available. Continue on.
The organic form. When you buy a synthetic fertilizer, it is usually a treble superphosphate or something that's been refined and chelated before it goes into the bag, so that it's water soluble.
What?
It definitely
What
is
are you
used by the
fucking
grass
talking
in
about?
The rooting process. But
Chelating
in my
phosphorus.
projects, I
Holy smokes.
still use
Holy
zero
smokes,
phosphorus
man.
fertilizers because I put something in there to stimulate the biomass to release the phosphorus that's already in the soil and work on it that way. So I can get the benefits of natural soil phosphorus. Phosphorus is not soluble. In other words, it binds to soil particles. There was an interesting study done a number of years ago, test plots, 3 test plots. One fertilized with an organic fertilizer containing phosphorus, one fertilized with a synthetic fertilizer containing phosphorus, and the third was the control with no fertilizer application at all. So then they'd ask, then they asked the class, which one contributed the biggest phosphorus? And most people said the synthetic fertilizer containing phosphorus. It was actually the unfertilized plot. Because no nitrogen fertilizer reduces turf density, and when turf density reduces, more soil is exposed to wind and water erosion, and it moved off-site and became a contaminant. So appropriate use of nitrogen is involved in rooting, but nitrogen doesn't just make a lawn green. It governs top growth at certain times of the year.
Okay.
DeMay.
Hang on. I'm not done yet. 55 minutes, 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and hear.
Is he still
Chip talk
talking
more
about phosphorus?
He's talking about nitrogen now. You got to let him.
Let's
you gotta
hang
let
on
him
real
choose
quick.
nitrogen.
Let's talk, can we talk about phosphorus, or is he going to bring it up again? Is it okay to just comment right
you
now?
Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
The only thing I'm going to say is that, he said that you have to apply some sort of chelant in order for it to become, or it's made in a bag with a chelant in order for it to be taken up by the plant. All of that is complete and total horseshit. Turfgrass has what are called exudates. Can phosphorus exist in a soluble form? Fuck yeah, absolutely. Monoammonium phosphate, soluble as hell. Diammonium phosphate, soluble as hell. Potassium phosphate, soluble as hell. All day long. And you can apply this left, right. Now, once it's in the soil, is it fairly quickly going to become insoluble? Sure. How does it solubilize and make its way into the plant? These organic acids that he's talking about occur through root exudation. So these organic acids are released in this symbiotic relationship between the soil and the root system, where it'll release bits of citric acid, malic acid, oxalic acid, amino acids in exchange for solubilization of the phosphorus that exists in the soil so it can make its way into the plant. But here's the reality of the situation. If you pull a soil test and say it is a Malic 3 test, and you see 2 parts per million of phosphorus, you're not going to be able to extract 70 parts per million of phosphorus out of 2 parts per million. I feel like he's completely glossing over that. And so many times when I hear these asinine statements that, it's just unavailable to the plant. You got to make it available. They make it sound like there's all this just hidden phosphorus out there that no test is ever going to be able to see. It's just buried somewhere in there within the aggregate, and you got to break it apart with humic acids. And then if you break it apart, then it'll be able to make its way in there. The reality is that a Malic 3 extractant is a very strong extractant. You're going to get a pretty good looking profile at exactly what is in there. Then from there, the way it gets into the plant, the plants do not eat fucking solids. They uptake liquids via water. And so solubilization is important. And what are going to be some of your best solubilizing things that can occur? It's going to be what is given by the root system in the form of exudates, so it can solubilize this and bring it into the plant very easily. Very fucking easily. It doesn't require hoodoo or magic or change to anything you do other than a regular maintenance fertility program. And voila.
Yeah. Water, pH, and nitrogen, all the things that I bang on. And notice how I don't talk anything about organic matter or microbes, okay? Because
How does
you know what
organic phosphorus is not in solution? It is not soluble. There is no chelate there for organic phosphorus, and he wants to talk about the benefits of using it. How the fuck is it solubilized and make its way into the plant? Through mineralization? Yeah, and through a lot of it is through fucking exudates. The exudates are what get into the plant.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see, people like him, I feel like he's trying to bring back that Soviet style and that Chinese style alchemy that killed millions of people. That's Chip Osborne right there. He believes in that pseudoscience. You know, how to make the soil materialize phosphorus out of nothing.
Let's go to
Let's see what he has to say
5530.
about nitrogen.
Nitrogen. That's good right there. Yeah.
But new development and turf reestablishment, we do allow application up to a pound per 1,000 square feet without a soil test. So I think, is that consistent with what both of you are saying, or is that somewhat inconsistent? I think we're pretty sure we consulted with you to some extent on that, Chip, but.
Yeah, maybe Jesse, but yeah.
Yeah. So and then the nitrogen piece, one other thing that I would ask Chip this question is that it's my understanding that below a certain temperature threshold that the microbial activity is somewhat limited. So we do have a precondition for allowing a waiver to use a synthetic nitrogen if the temperature is consistently below 55 degrees within that crucial period for fertilization, then we'll allow that. No, that's one of the preconditions that we
Hang
allow.
on, wait a minute. This is
What is he? What is going on here? Is this reality?
No, Matt. They just said that they're going to allow nitrogen.
Cool weather soluble phosphorus applications?
No, cold weather soluble nitrogen applications long after the turf has started to go dormant. So they're telling you when it's cold enough for the turf to go dormant, that's when you can throw down soluble nitrogen. Make that one make sense to me.
As long as it's before November 1st. I mean, December 1st.
As long as it's before December 1st. If you're seeding or renovating and your temperatures have dropped below a certain threshold, you're allowed to put down a pound of soluble nitrogen. My goodness, this is just weird, centrally controlled agronomy again. That doesn't make any.
Would choke on his own laughter if he heard this.
Yeah, he would. Shaddix would have a cow. Shaddix would totally have a cow because you see.
Oh, it's going to get better? I can't wait. Lay it on me.
Soluble sodium nitrate. And, urea and ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate, all the synthetic forms of nitrogen are
sodium nitrate's organic.
Created in the laboratory. Sodium nitrate is a mined mineral that has the same properties. So yes, you're exactly right. In cool soils, bacterial life is slower and not efficient at breaking down. So that's early.
So hang on, guys.
Here in May,
sodium nitrate. That's a popular thing in the Soviet Union and China. And guess what happens when they fertilize with sodium nitrate in those places?
Communism prevails?
No, their soil is foobarred. Their soil is foobarred, okay? Because, Ryan, you get a little bit itchy when the sodium level in irrigation water goes above a certain part per million. Can you imagine throwing down tons per hectare of sodium nitrate and the corresponding sodium load from that?
No.
Figure that one out. Fertilization. You can't use an organic fertilizer after Halloween. That's about the outside end of it. Most turf shouldn't be fertilized. I know that in the synthetic industry, there's late fall fertilization where just about dormancy, you put down, some nitrogen to drive root growth, but knowing that a lot of the grasses slough off a good chunk of the root system during the winter, again, that's sort of counterintuitive to spend 4 or 5 weeks late in the season growing roots only to lose them in January and
Pause.
February. But
What is he talking about? Roots sloughing off dramatically in the wintertime. I
In the
don't think he
wintertime,
under-
yeah, I think.
Why are they sloughing off though, Chip? Why are they sloughing off?
Why would they be
Because the
sloughing
grass
off
is because the grass is consuming carbohydrates from them and is not able to replace them at a rate that outpaces what their consumption is. That's why they're sloughing off, because they're fucking using it. Has nothing to do like this guy doesn't even understand basic plant physiology.
No.
Nope. And you see, plant physiology is apparently trumped by organic alchemy. That's my observation of the organic space, or what I've witnessed of it is basic agronomy is trumped by alchemy involving magical microbes that materialize fertilizer elements out of thin air.
Yes,
Where
exactly
is he
right.
going to go
Cold
with this?
soils, organic fertilizers, not as effective. I think since the South Portland, thing, we've started to do a lot more with sodium nitrate. But again, it's the same thing. It's soluble, and it's going to find its way in a negative way, just like a synthetic fertilizer will.
Okay, good. At least he stated that.
Really interesting discussion. We'll get on to the next question.
He
but,
failed to mention
some of what
what
Heather
happens
said.
when you put sodium on soil, though. He's completely not talking about what happens when you put high amounts of sodium on soil.
Yeah,
I'm
sodium's
familiar
not
with
important.
Yeah, I'm familiar with what happens when there's a lot of sodium in soil, and it ain't pretty, Matt and Ryan. Let me tell you, not pretty.
Let's go to 1:37. 1 minute or 1 hour 37 minutes. We get into the Q&A portion here with some of the residents, and it gets interesting.
Oh God.
A couple
Master
of houses
gardeners are
away
gonna start
who
asking
doesn't treat
questions.
their lawn at all and doesn't care for their lawn, and I do. So that's a big issue. Blow-in from neighbors, right? And the second thing is, why is it that in the town of Falmouth, where there are 3 golf courses, many playing fields, they're the largest areas that are being managed with probably pesticides, herbicides, and the lot. Those are the biggest contributors. They are all exempted from this ordinance.
Pesticides and
Pause.
herbicides.
I don't get it.
Okay, he doesn't get it. Bob here, I don't know what his name is. Bob doesn't get it. Okay, so let's break this down for Bob, right, of why this is important. One, golf courses, right, have an economic interest, right, to promote and sustain healthy turf grass and everything like that. And in fact, we know that healthy turf grass is the best defense against any of these other pests and things that might need to require additional inputs, right? We talked about the acelepryn before, right? That's a great example of working ahead within the system to prevent further issues that might require a more heavy-handed, quote-unquote, approach. So the other thing, too, with golf courses and even sports fields is that typically these large, massive areas have professional staff that are maintaining them, people that are trained, people that have licensure, people that have experience on what to do and when to do it and why to do it. And that's the difference between this and John Q. Sixpack, who has his own 2-acre lot that he's going to go out there and spread with God knows what from fucking yard mastery. Okay. So the whole point here is that, there's the economic thing. The other thing too, with the sports fields is that we have a duty of care, right? As a town, as whoever is operating that space to make sure that those fields are safe. Right. And guess what, Ray and Matt? When you go out there and there's grubs chewing up the field, and I don't care what your thresholds are and everything like that, what do you think that your rotational resistance is going to be when you're stepping in fucking dirt instead of
ACL, MCL, PCL,
Ryan,
TCL.
I got a worse one for you. I got a
and
worse scenario for you.
HIV.
ABC?
What happens? No, what
Always
happens
be
when
cunnilingus thing.
instead of your sports field being a uniform stand of turf, you have all of these coarse, clumpy grasses that are not behaving according to the spec of that sports field. Like, what if your sports field were, say, your typical Hawaii mix of, for example, smut grass and goose grass?
There's a lot of
What
spot
happens-
going here.
Yeah, it's you're talking about knees and ankles that are just train wrecked.
Yep. And the whole point is that if you don't manage and maintain these fields, to maintain safe playable conditions, then what is the alternative? No, I've seen the alternative, because not being able to maintain natural grass in playable and safe condition results in people with bright ideas saying, "Oh, let's install synthetic turf." And that's attended by other issues.
All right, let's go to 1 hour, 56 minutes, right on the button. We have one more comment. There's way more to unpack from this video. I might pull up.
I'm going to listen to this tomorrow. I am. I'm going to reach out to Andrew Baxter. I'm looking at his Facebook right now. I just sent him a friend request, and I'm going to get him on the show. I really want to talk to this guy.
All right, 156 here.
It's thinking real hard. It's got the little dots on Bob's boob.
They've. Oh yeah, it does. Look at that.
Yeah.
What if Bob's? What if that's Bob's areola just rotating in space? Who knows?
They're putting product on in Cape Elizabeth that costs $180 a bag. Not many of us can afford that, and it doesn't work very well. So I'll read this statement. It'll take me about 2 minutes. Falmouth is not Portland or South Portland. They have actual downtowns, 2 large hospitals, an airport, arenas, stadiums, Unum, Hydex, Wex, and many more large businesses. We have Tyler Tech and the European Bakery. We are much more rural than our urban neighbors. We have different needs. Most Falmouth homes are on acreage, as opposed to the postage stamp size lots in Portland and South Portland. What may be appropriate for other towns is not necessarily good for Falmouth. I have asked at previous meetings for you to identify the problem you are trying to solve, and I again ask you to identify the problem. What I've heard tonight is potential. I haven't heard a problem, that there is this. And what I heard in April, the only thing I heard, they saw an algae bloom in the ocean, they confronted the property owner bent over backwards, and the problem was solved. That's the way this should go. I'm on well and septic, which are as good today as when they were installed 35 years ago, because of the healthy environment that I've created by the responsible, and the word is responsible, use of chemicals. How do I know I have a healthy environment? Well, this year the following have visited my property. Deer, turkey, fox, skunks, woodchucks, fisher cats, squirrels, chipmunks, bees, including honeybees, butterflies, hummingbirds, hawks, finches, cardinals, as well as many other birds, and last but not least, mice and voles. To maintain a healthy environment, I do need to use grub control. I cannot control the flight patterns of beetles, which love my beautiful flowers. 7 or 8 years ago, I lost all of the grass in my backyard to grubs, jeopardizing my septic system. It was very, very expensive to replace that.
Excuse me, do you have a question?
I have this statement.
Yeah, my question is, why are you so fucking stupid and let him fucking finish his statement? That's what the question is.
Been and is today environmentally healthily. The ordinance will destroy our beautiful town, lower property values, reduce the tax base, and put Falmouth lawn care businesses out of business. And I do have, we talked about this ordinance. It's 5 pages. I have a short 2-sentence ordinance that I think would do the town much better. The town of Falmouth identifies an environmental problem that affects others in the town will request the homeowner or business to rectify the problem promptly. If the problem is not rectified, the town will have the authority to restrict the use of the offending chemicals for 6 months. That's easy to understand. Everybody can understand it, and it addresses a specific problem. Thank you.
I want to buy that guy a nice bottle of bourbon.
I'll be as quick.
For sure.
What a sensible human being he is. It makes perfect sense. I think this is a great segue out of here, is that, again, there's a lot of hoopla about the potentials. And if we live in an era where we constantly cry about the fucking potentials, but when you look at the data, how much of this is actually occurring, right? Like Chip Osborne is going on and on about, you need chelants and for phosphorus solubility and nitrogen that's doing whatever. And, there's going to be algal blooms and this and that. And is there? Is there? If we look at the historical context of the area that you live, how frequently is it happening? And like he pointed out, look, we had an issue. We got it rectified. It did rectify the issue. Problem solved. Then why the fuck is the entirety of the town having to undergo this fist up the asshole approach by the local government to restrict any and everything at their will that's now going to put my investment in my property in jeopardy because I'm on septic that is healthy. I'm on property that is very biodiversity, very, very biodiverse, and all for the hoops and hula and pleasure of sucking off Chip Gaines as if he's the second coming of Christ, environmental Christ.
Okay, I have a little like commentary.
I can't wait to listen to this
editorial on
tomorrow because I feel like it's going to be 2 hours of people on their knees just gargling his balls and everything that comes out. I don't know.
We missed the first part of this where this guy took him to the woodshed. First 30
Good.
seconds.
Yeah, because
was it that same guy?
Oh yeah, that same guy. Yeah.
God, I
Oh,
fucking
boy.
like that guy. I want to find him
Okay.
too.
Yeah, because Matt, do you all know what happens when turf and landscaped areas are not maintained? You know what happens in the end? I can tell you what happens. You know what? When turf and landscaped areas are not maintained, the next time it rains, you get massive soil runoff into the waterways.
Yeah.
Okay?
100%.
Okay, because you know what, Matt? That is exactly what happens here in Hawaii. Massive runoff.
Yeah,
And
bare
you know why there's
ground
massive-
is an issue. I mean, it's the whole thing in
No,
farm with leaving
it's-
soil fallow for
It's
so
not
long.
even bare ground, Matt. You know what the problem is? That is what happens when areas are maintained as weeds, not turf grass. Weeds.
Yeah, because it's not dense.
Yeah, it's just like hack down fucking shit. And so the next time it rains, all that soil just runs straight to the next waterway. And that is what Maine is asking for to happen. Don't maintain your turf grass. Let it go to weeds.
So while we're talking about hypotheticals here, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and check out this week's returns. We got a great one to segue in here. I'm back. The Farm Bill, is it coming? Is it not? Should we go or should we stay now? The Republicans won. They won the White House. The GOP has a Senate majority, while control of the House remains up in air as of early Wednesday morning. It's clear the political, which looks like it is now going the way of the GOP as well, too. The political landscape will be much different in D.C. come 2025, but what about the rest of the year? Could a lame duck president and Congress deliver a farm bill on the way out? It could just happen. The Ag Committee Chair, Glenn G.T. Thompson, has made it clear that he desperately wants to pass a farm bill this year. Now that Pennsylvania Republicans hold more leverage, knowing a farm bill next year would go through Trump and a Republican Senate, that means House Democrats could be more willing to negotiate with their Republican counterparts. They know their negotiation position will be much weaker next year. Sources close to Thompson say he personally wants to pass a farm bill with the committee members that have worked on legislation over the past 2 years. Before Congress went on to recess in October, he requested a meeting with Democrat ranking member David Scott Democrat out of Georgia, and Senate Ag Committee leaders Debbie Stabenow and John Boozman, a Democrat and Republican, to emphasize this point. This will be Stabenow's last chance to get a farm bill across the finish line before she retires at the end of the year. Whether or not that influences her decision remains to be seen. Democrats still have some leverage, as we just discussed there. And suffice to say, there are plenty of reasons for both parties to prioritize the farm bill this year. Getting it done remains a daunting proposition. Congress will have a full schedule when it returns later this month. Getting a farm bill through could be too much to ask. Still, if election night is any indication, unexpected outcomes are becoming the norm in D.C. That is for fucking sure. Again, alongside the farm bill, I think my biggest fear when it comes to the farm bill is what else is going to be put into it. Is it going to be a clean bill, or is it going to be backed with a bunch of pork, which just seems to be how we negotiate in Congress now? Is it's never a single point. It's always, how do we leverage money for this and money for that has not even anything remotely close to farm whatsoever. One of the things that I do know is on the floor right now, and we'll kind of parlay into is we started hearing more and more about cabinet positions in the Trump administration. One of them that came forth was the Secretary of Agriculture now becoming Thomas Massey, who's out of Kentucky. Thomas Massey sponsored a bill that is called the Prime Act. And one of the things that I think the Prime Act is great at is that it is going to stoke the populism fans of the left and right who believe that big businesses are a problem and causing harm to the economic environment that we live in. And instead of punishing directly the big businesses by government enforcing price mandates or additional taxes on them, things that kind of hinder or leverage growth. What Thomas Massey did, which I think is brilliant, and what really is leveraging a free market economy, is they said, what we're going to do is we're going to deregulate to give an economic advantage to smaller food processors and food packagers. So that way they have better competing power against the big boys, because it's not always just necessarily a money thing. A lot of times it's a regulation thing as well too, especially when it comes to the FDA and the EPA related to food and food packaging, processing, and production. It's a whole nother level of wackery that goes on there, and that's why you see Amish people being thrown in jail, which is just absolutely fucking asinine. I don't care what side of the political aisle you fall on. That's fucking crazy. If people want to buy from them, I mean, they should be able to buy milk from them, right? It's just it's fucking insane to me. Anyway, I digress. I think there's good potential that can come out of this if it is kept somewhat relatively clean. And then if they do have some leveraging power and be able to get something in like the Prime Act, even if that's done unilaterally and on its own outside of the farm bill, I think that would be great. Now, that being said, does a farm bill need to go through? I don't know. Ag is now starting to trend out of its recession. Little bit. It went from 70% agree that we were in an ag recession, and now it's 63% believe we're in an ag recession. So there's a little bit of positive movement there. We saw some spike in commodity prices, which was actually a good thing because we were below the profitability line of what grain prices were. So that's all trending slightly in the right direction. Believe it or not, actually, the drought that we were going through was part of the stimulus there. Now, again, this is where it gets weird, right? We're again, the Trump administration is said that tariff is the greatest word. It's probably greater than the word love. And does that mean that we're going to fire up a new trade war? And what does the outside of this trade war look like, right? Again, we have been in one since 2019. If no one is aware, we have been in a trade war since 2019. And that was Trump's trade war that he brought it on. And the Biden administration said, you know what, anything you can do, I can do better. And they expanded it to outside industries other than just ag. So I don't want to make this that this is just a one-party thing. This is one thing that the Democrats and Republicans are shaking hands on and are like, yeah, this is a good idea. This is a good idea. And now, since it was so successful the first time, we're gonna run into it again. The now third term in since has begun. Now, how that relates back to ag is one of the advisors that has been a name has been kicked around there as an advisor to the Secretary of Agriculture, which would ultimately be Thomas Massey, as far as floating in the background right now, is another one of these Chip fucking Osborne guys, right? Because we've got RFK, who's the wild card, crazy Dem in the mix. And people are like, he's a right winger. No, I don't care what the fuck you say. Look at his history. RFK is a Dem through and through. His environmental positions, his economic positions, his even his social position. The guy's a fucking Dem through and through. And the Dems loved him for many years up until right now. Actually, it was COVID. COVID is when he lost all his respect from the left, right? Okay, so where I'm going with this is that Joe Salatin's name was put up as an advisor to Thomas Massie as a pick from RFK to be able to guide the Secretary of Agriculture. I want to make it clear that anyone that owns a lawn care company in America wants to keep number one, RFK, and number two, Joe Salatin, far the fuck away from what we do. Deregulation is a good thing. I'm gonna stand on that hill that what Thomas Massie did with the Prime Act is brilliant. We need more of that from our lawmakers to maintain a free and fair, open market. What we need less of are people like Joe Salatin, Chip Osborne, Gabe Brown, and RFK anywhere near fucking agriculture. Now, if the approach is that small farmers should have the freedom to be able to do whatever it is they need to do, that's fine. But I don't think there's a lot of restrictions right now on small farms from being able to do a whole lot except sell raw milk. The rest of it's pretty fucking fair game. Now, I know on the food packaging processing side, like meat packaging and stuff, that's tense. Like there's a lot of weird regulations in there that they can't meet quotas and thresholds and shit in order to do business with the big boys. Again, the Prime Act solves that. So that's a good win there for the regenerative organic ag guys that do organic meat production. But when it comes to organic grain and crop production and fruit production, there aren't really a whole lot of restrictions there. So if they think they're going to come in and start issuing regulations there to give those guys an advantage to be able to scale their operations at the behest of cutting down traditional ag, that is bad fucking news. And that's bad fucking news for our industry. That is bad fucking news for lawn care, any turfgrass professional whatsoever. And I highly recommend that if you give a fuck about this, do what I did and write to Thomas Massie and state you're going to have to do your own research. We could do something a little later. We can go. I'll do a study that was conducted by Gabe Brown where they were doing bale piling and creating this scenario where magically they increased soil organic matter by like 10%. And it was all through regenerative ag processes. And really what they were doing is they were piling hay bales. And when you pile hay bales on farms, the cows are going to become centrally located, eat and shit right there where those bales are. And then they're going to disperse the organic matter, the biomass of those bales. And so you get these layers and layers and layers of hay that builds up. But where did the hay come from? It came from the surrounding 20 acres that were sacrificed in order to build up these 2 acres where you saw this 10% increase in organic matter. And it was all a fucking giant facade. And it is touted as like regenerative ag's saving grace. Again, that was Gabe Brown. He's in the same degree of alignment with fucking Joe Salatin. If you put Chip Osborne in the room with them, you wouldn't know who the fuck is who aside from their accents are different. And these people need to fucking stay away from regulations. They need to fucking stay away from government, and they need to stay the fuck away from our industry. And so anyway, in fact, I think next episode, I will go ahead and do that. I'll run through the whole Gabe Brown situation. I'm going to encourage you to write to Thomas Massie or your local fucking people and be like, keep these fucking people away because they want to kill our industry. And that's legit. You can go through RFK's entire long-lasting record of environmentalism, and he does not want the lawn care industry to exist, period, unless it looks like what Chip Osborne does. And that is absolutely fucking asinine and stupid and insane. So as listeners here, we're going to encourage you not to go along with that. Now, we also have the farm bailout bill, which would cost $21 billion. Again, this is because of the recession that it's in. They're talking about this bailout bill costing $21 million for the major commodities with the specified payment rate calculation outlined in proposed legislation. We estimate that the Farm Act would result in $21 billion in ad hoc support payments to farmers. The sheer size of the proposed support payments presents significant hurdles to the Farm Act becoming law as proposed. In addition, the bill could be interpreted as evidence of shortcomings in U.S. farm policy and delay work on the Farm Bill into 2025. Kelly's bill would pay farmers 60% of the shortfall per acre between expected revenue from crops and cost of production. It uses a formula that would reduce yields per acre, making payments more likely to allow payments up to $350,000 per farmer. The farm program generally sets a limit of $125,000 per farmer. So again, because of this recession, because we subsidize farm more aggressively than anything else. When are we going to start subsidizing lawn care? I don't want that to happen, but boy, wouldn't that be fucking nice. But again, they're talking about the cost of this being $21 billion because it is so extreme. They're probably going to kick it over till it's on the next budgeting thing, just to make one side be like, oh, see, look, they're having to spend all the money. You fucking idiots. It's all their fault. And then the other people will be like, they never took care of it. It's all their fault. And so it's just more just bullshit that's out into the atmosphere. So
just finger pointing nonsense.
Yep.
Pretty much.
One thing is for sure is that it's all a bunch of he said, she said bullshit. But what does actually matter, we're gonna cover that. And we're gonna talk more about who the Secretary of Agriculture is going to be, who those advisors are going to be, and we will encourage you to fucking reach out and do something, make your voice heard. I'll say this: I emailed Thomas Massey. I got either from his aide or someone back. It seemed like a very personal, like they read what I wrote, and they were interested in going through the information, and said they may have questions. And I thought I was pretty impressed by how that went. So anyway, I think we might be able to make a little noise there enough to get some attention paid. All right, that is going to wind this show up. Again, I have reached out to Andrew. Do what?
We got a mailbag.
Oh, we got a mailbag. My
You
bad.
got
I'm on
mail.
1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah. You were on one.
Where is? Oh, here's.
You want me to read it?
I got it right here. We got critter damage, gentlemen's. What animal is doing this damage to my brand new lawn? It's nocturnal because it's consistently every morning. What is your advice on what to do about it? I've been going out every morning and pressing the pieces back into the soil. Thank you. That is just digging it up like that. Man, these are not.
Yeah, that's not far away enough, I don't think.
Yeah.
Something is.
Terrence, if you can get us some pictures of the larger scope of damage, I'm going to guess that's a groundhog because they are fucking everywhere out where I live right now. I'm in, rural area of Knoxville, and I almost ran over one yesterday. I saw 3 in the yard this afternoon. They are fucking everywhere right now. Skunks are out pretty bad right now too, but normally you'll see kind of like tunneling with skunks. So that's just a guess. I don't think it's like wild hogs. If it's wild hogs, it looks like it's been pulled up by like sod. It's not going to be a small chunk like this. So I definitely don't think it's a hog, and I especially don't think you see wild hogs in St. Louis. I've only seen them way out here in Knoxville. They're pretty far out. But yeah, if you got any better pictures that, even if it's been pushed back on the ground, we'll likely see what the pattern looks like. And because it's, but as far as like you pushing it back in, yeah, that's literally what you're going to have to do. So yeah. All right, that is it. We're going to wind this up. We're going to head over to the patrons and let them choose the title of this week's episode. Again, I have reached out in relation to that chip gains thing that DeMay brought up. And the reason why I get excited about this, because these are the things that actually impact our day-to-day in our industry. These are impact your ability to make money in this industry. And so it's something that I take pretty personally, and I want to stand up for it. And so, again, I reached out to Andrew, who was sitting next to Chip Gaines and, was very much taking the opposite position of Chip Gaines. And I want to get him on the show. And even if I'm going to listen to his retorts tomorrow and see if we can identify any shortfalls where we might be able to bolster up some information for him, that hopefully he can keep this fight alive and that we don't lose another county and especially another state to pesticide bans that are absolutely overreaching and is a perfect example of the governmenting too hard. Because again, once litigation starts somewhere, it travels to other areas, and that's the recipe for fucking downfall. And we can't let that happen. We absolutely cannot let that happen because it is fucking happening. I don't care who says it's not. It is fucking happening, and someone's going to have to do something about it. And I guarantee there's a lot of people out there that are watching from the sidelines that are too fucking pussy to do something about it, and we're not. So you know what? We're gonna go to the regulators, and we're gonna fucking stand up with the knowledge base that we have built together here. So there we go. All right, y'all have a great night. We're going to hang out with the patrons and let them choose this week's episode. We'll see y'all on Wednesday. Bye.